Great. So ladies, I think we can start. I was trying to check in with Dr. Gladys, but I guess she's still undergoing the treatment process. So I'll give her some time off. Hopefully she gets to join us before the end of the session. So once again, thank you so much everyone for joining in on what will be an Ashoka East Africa facilitated session, where we will be looking at Wanawake Waanzilishi, or young women founders, discussing on the inclusivity of women in social entrepreneurship and leadership. My name is Zahra Lethome, and I must say what a timely event we're having, given that at Ashoka East Africa, we're also marking our 20th anniversary this month. And what better way to commemorate this by celebrating and appreciating the women innovators in our space. So thank you so much for joining in. Without further ado, I think it will be best to allow for our speakers to introduce themselves, starting with you, Khalila.
Thank you, Zahra. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon and welcome to this session. I agree. It is such a timely session. I am so honored. Just the WISER Summit and everything that it stands for. Just giving ourselves a chance to have bold conversations about how we want to craft the future. I'm personally, I'm a founder and CEO of a company, which is a group of companies called Unleashed Africa Social Ventures. We work in the arts and development space, gender, as well as social enterprise ecosystem development, right at the intersection of youth development, social innovation, and job creation. Excited to see what we have to share today and learn with you all.
Thank you, Khalila. Next, you can have Ifra.
Thank you, Zara. Hello, everybody. It's lovely to meet everyone here, my lovely panelists, and the audience today. My name is Ifra Mohammed Arab. I'm from Kenya. I am the founder and CEO of Supermom, a social enterprise that empowers women from marginalized communities here in Kenya to create a sales force that distributes fast-moving consumer goods within their communities. So I'm really looking forward to share more about, how I started Supermom, what kind of norms that, I had to overcome, what kind of cultural barriers that, I faced throughout my journey, and maybe be an inspiration to one or two people today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ifra. Really looking forward to having that conversation with you. Next, we have Karen Wakoli, also from Kenya. Karen, karibu.
Thank you, Zara. Hi, everyone. As you have heard, my name is Karen Wakoli, Executive Director of Emerging Leaders Foundation, where we grow the next generation of values-based leaders. I am so looking forward to having this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And last but not least, I can see Dr. Gladys. Dr. Gladys, would you like to do an introduction? You're on mute. I think I can introduce you, Dr. Gladys, as you go about the audio issues. So Dr. Gladys is the founder, is first of all an founder, and is the founder and CEO of Conservation Through Public Health. And today she'll be focusing her discussion more on the opportunities available for women innovators in East Africa. And hopefully this applies to others who are also joining in from other regions. So thank you so much, everyone. Without further ado, I think we can start our conversation with Khalila. Khalila, I know that you've mentioned working with youth development, entrepreneurship, and innovators in Tanzania. So how would you say systems change ties in with innovations, especially with our women innovators?
Right. So I just want to be clear. Are we going to present, or should I just answer your questions directly? Because that's also in my presentation.
I think you can present as well. Do you have the screen sharing? Well,
I can share my
presentation. All right,
yeah,
awesome.
I could do that. I don't think I need that. So it's actually strange. I can see the sharing screen option, but I can't see the option to pick my slides. But I'll just answer your question directly. So systems change and innovation in its entirety immediately go together. So if we're talking about systems change, it's really about looking at challenges, or as a society, looking at challenges in society, not as individual pieces of self. So when we're trying to address a problem, when we're talking about an issue we want to solve, we're not thinking about it in its superficial form. Systems change says, well, everything is part of a whole. We are all part of a system. Everything exists within an ecosystem. To be able to tackle one thing, you have to delve deep down to really understand where the problem really is coming in, what are the fabrics of society that interwoven into one another to be able to actually address something. And systems change isn't even, systems change, or maybe talk about systems thinking, isn't just a concept that applies to solving problems. It's a concept that applies to life in general. Just this whole concept of everything is interlinked. And when we're coming up with solutions, when we're coming up with our own identities or perceptions of identity with life, it's important to be able to understand that we are part of a whole. So when it comes to innovation, which is basically just coming up with new ways to solve a problem or to do something, systems change and systems thinking is a fundamental practice or principle to be anchored on, especially when we're coming up with solutions for Africa. One of the things that has permeated our societies has been, I call these cosmetic solutions that are cute and surface level, but they don't necessarily delve deep down into understanding the core issues and the core from where the problems arise. And so we have just cookie cutter solutions that are not sustainable, that do not necessarily solve the problems, cost a lot of money, and have very, very little impact. So systems change is something that all innovators need to be thinking about. If anybody's going to be thinking about creating long-lasting solutions and truly being able to scale, which is exactly what we need, systems change is a principle that we should all be thinking about. And hence systems thinking is a practice that should be consistent practice and not something that we only think about when we're thinking about, solving for problems.
Thank you so much, Khalila, for sharing those insights. And you mentioned having a presentation. I believe you can share that right now.
Shared was, I can see the option to share the screen, but when I go to application window, I can't see the option to actually share that particular presentation. I can see every single many things that are on my desktop, but I can't see that particular presentation.
It's okay. That in that case, I think you can take us through the presentation verbally, if you're able to.
I don't think it will do it justice at all.
All right.
Because it works together. There are pictures and videos. And I go into Medici effect and systems thinking, and the images really help bring it home. So,
all right, that's fine. So I think I would pass the same question over to Karen and Ifra. Being innovators, I'm sure you have come across the term systems change, and also having tried to apply it in your innovations and enterprises as well. Does this resonate with you? Starting with you, Karen.
Absolutely, yes, it does resonate. So like I said, Emerging Leaders Foundation is an organization that is aimed at growing and nurturing the next generation of values-based and ethical leaders. And so that means we do lots of training, lots of mentorship, lots of coaching, a bit of field work and practical engagement of young women and men. And also just looking at the theme and the main aim why we're here in this particular summit, to celebrate women entrepreneurs. Shifting mindset is really key. And so having to look at the system and assess the system and see for instance, are the responsibilities? What are the roles? Who are the players? Who are the actors? What is their level of influence? And so at what point do we come in to begin to change mindsets, to make sure there's change and ensure there's more inclusion of women, young women in this case, because then we work with people below the age of 35. It is really critical. And we work with both young men and young women. So that means that as we work and journey with young men, we also want for them to experience a mindset shift, to move from sort of the patriarchal kind of mindset that some of them have grown up with and in, to begin to embrace transformative kind of masculinity, to understand that, you know what, men and women do exist as partners. And when we work together and involve everybody and make sure we have spaces and we create spaces where both men and women get heard, then we benefit as a society. And on the other side, for women, we try to make sure there's also the mindset shift for these young women to understand and to know and to be convinced and convicted that, you know what, I have a voice and my voice matters and I need to speak up. And even when I'm afraid and when my voice is shaking, it does not matter. For as long as it is my truth, I need to speak up. So beginning to have or to engineer systems change, even just from the inside out, in terms of the actors and the target audience, like for us, it is really, really critical. So yes, I totally resonate with the whole idea of systems change. I think it's a really, really powerful concept. Over to you, Zara. Thanks.
Karen, as you're talking, you just took me back to last year. We were doing a change maker mapping in Kenya. And as you're talking with some of the women, apparently with some cultures, women are not allowed to be leaders. And there's so many controversies that come about with women entrepreneurs. But I think we'll dive into that again when we're looking at some of the challenges women innovators face. And over to you, Ifra, as well. Being a young entrepreneur in Kenya, how do you resonate with systems change?
Thank you, Zara. So I resonate with everything the rest of the other panelists have talked about: systems change, addressing the root problem, like changing the mindset, and dealing with the problem from the root level. And for us at Supermom, we deal with we're working like in a culture, especially at the moment, in a culture that does not believe in women being leaders, as you mentioned, does not believe in girl child education, and believes like a woman's place in the in the society is in the kitchen, or like getting married or something. And for us, like coming up with like a solution, like coming up with something that's going to create change, it required a lot of reaching out and trying to like find out what we can change within the culture, trying to change mindsets, like what we can do. And for us, we came through the economic empowerment angle, which has been, proven time and again to be like the best way to empower women, to give her a voice, especially in a society like mine. And, as we go on, I'm going to explain how, Supermom has come in and has used the whole empowering women economically, allowing them to have a way of earning a living, to allow them to be able to have a voice in society, and how we're using that to allow them to now get into positions of leadership, positions of making this making decisions, being allowed to speak up and everything else. So yeah, I'm going to get into it as we go on. But yeah, systems change is something that we're all about here at Supermom.
Ifra, really, really looking forward to that. Hello, Dr. Gladys. Thank you for joining in. Are you able to speak now? All right, I think we'll get back to her shortly. So Ifra, I think I'd just like to build up on the conversation you already begun in terms of shifting the mindsets of some of these communities that we come from. So what do you think it would take for us to have a community that is welcoming of women innovators, of young innovators as well, especially in our culture, in the East African context?
a lot has been people have been trying to, you know, do a lot in terms of, you know, creating like that systems change and trying to, you know, change that whole perspective and narrative of a woman can't, you know, do what a man can do and just basically bring women up. But then, you know, there's still so much to be done. And, you know, I think it's not just even about the women, as Karen has talked about, even the men, like in the society, like it begins from like home, like teaching men that like women are also of the same, like the same level. They should be accorded the same sort of like respect, given the same chances, allowed to do, you know, what men can do. I mean, like, speaking from like my own narrative, like here in Garissa, like there's a lot of like perception culture, like it's very patriarchal. So there's a lot of belief, even like growing up. Oh, even
Is now on.
okay.
Yeah, it's on.
Even like should I go on? Okay, even growing up. So it's something that's instilled in a young girl from growing up. So here, you know, that's what you're taught. Your place is in the kitchen. So for a long time, even from a personal perspective, because I did have parents who were open-minded and allowed me to, you know, do whatever I wanted to do, go to school and everything, and open me up to like a world of endless opportunities. I used to still get annoyed by everybody else not understanding that, you know, girls could also do what, you know, people put in society, like within the Somali culture, that only men are allowed to do. So for me, it used to annoy me, but then I came to realize that that lack of exposure, that mindset that you brought up with, is actually really key in changing what you know, what you pursue in life, what you see in life, and how you approach things. And it's something we're trying to do with, again, tying it back to Supermom. So what we're trying to do is, as much as, you know, we're coming in from like an economic empowerment angle, we're trying to wholesomely like educate women. And because we're working with mothers, we're trying to use that to teach women, like to teach the mothers to empower their families as well, to send their daughters to school, and just telling the narrative that I was able to get out and, you know, get an education, and that is why I'm coming back home to help you guys. So if you do send your daughters to school, then this is what they're going to be able to do for you. And that's the only way, because if this is what somebody has believed in forever, like if this is how someone's been brought up, that is what they see as right. So if whatever you like, whatever you say, whatever you bring, they're not going to listen to you unless you are like, you know, an example, sort of like, unless there's something to see even from your end, that is from, you know, my angle and the women that I'm working with. So it's been a whole mix of like trying to sell my narrative, be a role model, and show them that, you know, what I've been able to achieve, then other young girls can achieve. So if you do this for your daughters, then this is what they're going to. It's a first step, but then, you know, we're hoping it's going to change, you know, mindsets for a lot of people here in Garissa. And I'm sure it's not just unique to like my culture. There's a lot more communities and a lot other people within East Africa that face the same challenges. And, you know, a lot has to be done, but we're hoping for, you know, the best.
Have you had any outreach programs within your community?
So we do, just to quickly explain what Supermom is doing. So what Supermom does is, we're empowering women economically by teaching them, we're taking them through a financial training. So what we do is teach them how to sell and buy, how to set profit margins. And the reason why we're doing this is because we're trying to solve two problems: the last mile distribution gap of fast moving consumer goods. And by this, I mean people traveling really long distances to access basic everyday products like flour, sugar, what you use on a daily basis. And use use the two problems to sort of solve each other. So it's a win-win model. So what we do is we train women on basic financial skills and then match them up with products from manufacturing companies that are unable to reach that consumer in like that rural part of Kenya. And then having these women distribute these products within their communities, villages, within, you know, where they live. And this, you know, sort of like it allows companies to reach the consumers that they're trying to reach. The women are now able to get a way of earning a living, And at the same time, consumers don't have to travel like up to 40 kilometers to access everyday products. So starting off with Supermom, my whole idea and my whole, push was I just want to change society, because growing up, there was a lot I had to do to prove myself. Like in class, I could clearly tell from a very young age that the number of girls and boys were not the same. And as I grew older, I could see that, girls kept dropping out, and I could clearly tell that there were things that I wasn't allowed to do just because I was female. And I always wanted to address this problem, but then, culture is this one really huge thing that you can't wake up one day and say, hey, like no matter how angry you are, this is what I'm going to change. And for a long time, no lie, I was just really angry at culture and, going very aggressively at it. But then I realized that wouldn't solve the problem. I'd just, keep hitting a rock, and, people would just be against me. And then finally, when I decided to look at it from a more using like what we believe in, because this is my community, so what we believe in, to sort of like push my agenda for women empowerment, if to put it like, I don't have the right words, but use what I had and what we believe in to push women empowerment, which is why I thought about business, because in my culture, women are allowed to run businesses, and it's something that a lot of women do here. And I was like, why not use that angle to now wholesomely educate the women that I'm going to work with to improve and change mindsets about gender inequality here in Garissa County. So that was my approach. And that is what Supermom does, basically, just to give you a brief background and to the people listening. And, there were a lot of challenges that, we faced in terms of, there's a lot, like in terms of, I can't speak to elders, and, going into an area, you have to convince the elders to support you. There's a whole cultural process, and a woman is not allowed to, approach or speak in a congregation in my culture. And for me, I had to now collaborate with what my culture believes, and find like maybe like one or two elders who actually are a bit understanding of women leading, and using them to now approach the other elders and allowing them to now let us now start selling. But then during the training, we're also able to teach them about other things. So it's a whole long journey, but then I think for us it's been collaborating with what already exists, as much as it's not ideal, but then using that to now push the narrative and seek what we want to achieve. Yeah, thank you, Sarah.
Thank you very much, Ifra, for those insights. And that very much ties into Karen, the work that you do with your organization. Being a certified transformational leadership coach and trainer, how does this mentorship for mindset change work for young innovators and for women innovators?
Wow, thank you, Zara, for that question. I love that question. There are many things that are powerful in this life. One of those things, for me, is mentorship. Let me start with my own story, and also just share my belief system and where it comes from. I believe totally that I can be anything I want to be, I can do anything I want to do, I can achieve anything I want to achieve, for as long as I dream it, I think it, I dream it, I put it down, and I work towards that. That belief was ingrained in me when I was growing up. When I was a young girl in the village, my dad and mom always used to speak to us, and to me, being the eldest, telling me, Karen, gender is no limitation. Where you're born is no limitation. Your economic status is no limitation. The only limitation you can allow yourself to have is right here in the mind. So the mind is such a powerful tool. That guidance that I received from my parents, I think, has enabled me to be who I am today and to achieve whatever I have been able to achieve so far in this life. I have had the chance to work with some amazing young men and women in Kenya, but across the African continent. And let me tell you something, it has just demonstrated to me that what people need is actually not handouts. Young people don't need handouts. Women do not need tokenistic positions and such things. People just need opportunities to prove themselves. All of us, I believe, are leaders. But sometimes it takes another leader to call out the leader in some of us and tell us, you can make it. You are a leader. You're an entrepreneur. Yes, you have failed today, but you can make it. It calls upon people in society, especially those who've gone before us, either in terms of entrepreneurship, in terms of running an institution, in terms of career choices, in terms of life choices and decisions. It takes such people speaking into our lives and calling that power, that powerful part of us to come out, to unleash that power. And I use that name, and I see Halila here. Her organization is about unleashing, the potential and all that. So, and that is what we do at Emerging Leaders Foundation. And that is what I believe in, that is what I do. That mentorship is really powerful. It's a great tool. I remember a young girl, but then she was still a student leader at the University of Nairobi, called Grace. Grace came into the program a bit naive, yet she believed life would be better. She could be somebody, but she didn't know how. She could communicate, but some people would laugh at her because of the accent. But slowly by slowly, through mentorship and through her beginning to believe that, I can, that, it doesn't matter how I sound like, what I speak and what I say is more powerful than how I say it, that her dreams matter, that she matters. And she took baby steps, little steps here and there. And let me tell you something, Grace Mageka started an organization in Kisii County, an organization that deals with ending FGM, female genital mutilation, among the queer community for young women. And she left the community and went now to start impacting at the African Union level, and then left that, and now she's a young girl, she's below 30, but she's now impacting the globe in terms of leadership and making change and making impact in terms of policies that affect young people globally. Yet this was naive and felt that maybe, I know I have something, but I'm not sure I can be somebody. The power of mentorship. At some point in my own journey in the course of starting and running Emerging Leaders Foundation, I failed. I encountered failure, I think, for the first time in my life when I was running Emerging Leaders Foundation. Year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, no funding. I had applied for funding left, right, and center, done proposals, gone for pitching, competitions and all that. And guess what? I hadn't made it. And at some point I was thinking, maybe this is it. Maybe I should call it a day, or maybe this is God's way of telling me, Karen, this is not your thing. But I had older women who came to me, and especially those in entrepreneurship, and told me, Karen, this is part of the journey. You have to stick it out. You have to keep trying till you succeed. Till you succeed. And I kept doing that. I kept pushing till finally there was light at the end of the tunnel. And I decided, the lessons I have learned, it would be such a great disservice of me to keep those lessons to myself. Let me keep sharing them with the young entrepreneurs, the men and women that come into the spaces I operate in. Last year, towards the end of last year, there was an interesting report that was launched by MasterCard and the Executive Office of the President of Kenya that showed that young female entrepreneurs make 13 times less in terms of annual income than their male counterparts. And I started asking the question, why? Because then I did some random survey and I discovered, this is actually true, but why? Is it that they have more access to support groups that then introduce them to certain spaces where they get that credit or access the money, or what is it? And I said, what? We have to keep supporting each other as women, as female entrepreneurs, and sharing the lessons, networking with one another, with each other, and just offering that support to then make sure this is a more equal gender world, a more just gender world, because this is critical. It can be done. It has been done elsewhere. And yes, even in Kenya, we can do it. Yeah, Zara, over to you.
Thank you, Karen. Quite some powerful thoughts there. Hopefully we get to tie down on some of the problems that women innovators face, because definitely fundraising comes in at number one, knowing very much that women have issues accessing these opportunities, especially in East Africa. All right, so I think we can now have Dr. Gladys. Dr. Gladys, thank you so much for joining in. And just to tie it down, from
You're
your
welcome.
experience as an entrepreneur and an Ashoka Fellow all the way from 2006, what opportunities do you think women innovators need to tap into in order to scale some of the solutions?
That's great. Yeah, having become an Ashoka Fellow in 2006 for merging Uganda's wildlife management and rural programs to create common benefits for people and animals. That's when I realized that I was an entrepreneur, actually, when I became an Ashoka Fellow. And it's been a very exciting journey. And I have to say that along the way, me being a woman, I think I've inspired many other women to feel that they can do something for themselves, and not only, at different levels, not only in the corporate world, but also in the local communities where we work. We mainly work around Bwindi Impenetrable National Park, home to just under half of the world's endangered mountain gorilla. And we work closely through our model, because we improve health of people and gorillas and other wildlife together to stop making each other sick, and also to improve community attitudes to conservation. We started working with village health teams and teaching them to do conservation work. And then we found that because we're promoting community-based family planning, people didn't have to have babies every year. Women could take time off and actually start a business, and that really empowered them. It really, really empowered the women. And then as we continued, we found that many people are unhealthy because they're poor. And we realized there are actually coffee farmers around the park who are not benefiting from the tourism industry. They're not able to be employed as rangers or porters, and they can't necessarily sell their coffee to the tourists who come and actually sometimes walk through the coffee gardens before they get to them. Did she bring that? So we started realizing that we need to improve the livelihoods of the coffee farmers around the park, which is something that we started to do. And actually, when we first started out, it seemed to be majority of them were men. For example, we started off engaging 75 farmers and 5 were women. I just thought, and people kept saying, how can you get women involved in coffee? But now, as I speak, it's really gone up. We have like about 120 women out of 500 farmers. And they're really, really motivated. In fact, the women farms are better than the men farms because they're more detail-oriented. And in this way, we offer them above market price for good coffee. We reduce their need to enter the park to poach. And a donation from, and when we buy the coffee, we sell it at a higher price because it's very good Arabica, actually, in America. And a donation from every bag sold goes to the very same communities to improve community health, gorilla health and conservation, and also to improve their attitudes to conservation. So we find that the more that we do things like this, the more we encourage other women to become entrepreneurs. Just by being a role model, people start following you and thinking, I can also do this. Because the first time we ever got up and spoke to the community about diseases that can spread between people and gorillas, this was as far back as 1999, when I was working as a first vet for UA. The women started whispering, we need to educate our girl child. So the more that they see women leaders up there, the more they want to do this. And we find that half of our volunteers are women, half are men. The women are really becoming well recognized in the community and leaders in their community. So yes, we're trying to do a lot of that, a lot more of that. And I'm so grateful to Ashoka for really bringing out that entrepreneurial side of me. It's probably there, because, started a wildlife club when I was a teenager and all of this. But Ashoka just said to me, okay, you're an entrepreneur. It doesn't only have to be about making money, which is what Conservation Through Public Health is, a non-profit. But then we started the Gorilla Conservation Coffee Social Enterprise with my husband when we realized that we can actually create a global brand that can save gorillas one sip at a time. And now, as a for-profit social enterprise, it's also making money, but also encouraging other women to have their enterprises. I've really been inspired by people like the founder of Body Shop, who started a business for good so many years ago. I think in the 80s, I used to shop there. And it's really grown. But that time, people thought you couldn't have profits and create good for the community. She showed that it's possible. So they're also helping the environment. And I think it's really possible as women entrepreneurs. We have a more holistic approach to life. And we don't only look at profits, but we also look at how are our children going to survive? How is the planet going to improve? And in this way, we can actually create triple bottom line impact, financial, social, and environmental impact. Thank you.
Much, Dr. Gladys. I'm glad you're able to make it for the session, and we're also happy to have you as an Ashoka Fellow and celebrate you today. So I see that we only have around 10 minutes left for the session. So I would like each one of you to give a parting message to your fellow women innovators joining in on the session today, starting with you, Khalila.
Right. Okay, so it's quite an interesting conversation. I will have to say that I was quite bummed that I could not show my presentation because I was really excited about it. And the reason I was bummed is because, you know, some of the things that we're saying right now, Gladys, I loved your parting words with regards to women are naturally social innovators, naturally social entrepreneurs, because we see things differently, we feel things differently, we think about solutions, right? But then the thing that I had in my presentation and I was going to share after, based on research we've done with over 10,000 girls, was the problem with girls is, or with women, is even though we are better placed to actually execute on solutions, we don't. And we take a step back, and I was going to share why, just informed by research and data, and I had some stats I wanted to share. But it was very interesting when we went on ground. So we right now, Unleashed Africa, one of our products is called Rise Up. So like I said, Unleashed Africa works in quite a few different places, arts and development, gender, as well as social enterprise ecosystem development. Our work in gender is really about how can we use technology to create and scale solutions for gender. And we went on ground and we were talking to young girls, trying to understand, okay, there's so many programs out there already. There are quite a few initiatives. Why do we have such high numbers of teenage pregnancy prevalence? Why are so many female-led enterprises dying? Why? And of course, the answers we got when we went on ground were the generic cookie cutter answers that you get in a lot of research reports. And you know, our team went and delved deep into it. And we went into secondary schools. We spoke with teachers. I just want to share two stories. So one girl who was representing about a larger percentage, what they were telling us was, when we talked about scholarships and opportunities, they asked us, what are scholarships? And when we talked about platforms online where you can get jobs, and they said, oh, but am I allowed to do that? And when we talked about dreams, this is in Dar es Salaam. When we talked about dreams and asked them, what are your dreams? They asked, but what is a dream? And on drilling down, the question that they asked was, are we allowed to have dreams? These are girls in international schools. This is not grassroots. This is not rural area. This is the city. And we were trying to tackle and truly understand where the problems lie. So what you talk about, Karen, mindset, right? Mindset is so key, right? And one of the things that we need to be thinking about, even as we leave here, is when we're developing these solutions, when we're even thinking about systems thinking, yes, there are things that we know already, but it is important for us to leverage on diversity and such platforms as these to truly get answers that are probably not what we're expecting, to truly be able to fish out some of the things that are probably not going to be available online. There's always new data based on an old solution. So really for us to go around and try to fish out how to truly make change happen, especially for female entrepreneurs. The fact of the matter is funding is available. That's one of the things that I found out as a female entrepreneur. There's a lot of money out there. But the question is how well placed are we to help each other actually get a hold and harness and leverage the opportunities that are out there. So the things that you're talking about, Karen, with regards to mentorship, holding one another up, and truly allowing ourselves to be challenged. Because I think that's very important. Allowing ourselves to be challenged every time we say, oh, this is a solution. And once that happens and we allow ourselves to go deeper, even with systems thinking and challenging ourselves to come up with solutions, we can truly be able to take the courageous steps needed to create the solutions and the long-lasting solutions that our communities need. So thank you very much, Zahra. It was a pleasure being here.
Thank you so much, Khalila. Hopefully we get more time, beyond the Get Wiser Summit to just discuss the findings from the report. Over to you, Ifra, some parting words for our innovators joining in on the session.
Thank you, Zara. So I've learned so much from the other panelists today. And one thing that's resonated with me and that's been talked about, from all the panelists here has just been one, mentorship and raising each other and learning from one another. And it's been proven by, the work that Dr. Gladys is doing, the work that we're doing here at Supermom, what Karen has talked about in mentorship, what Khalila is doing at Unleash. And it's just all about, seeing another person doing it actually encourages more women to actually do it. And, for all the people who are joining this session, I hope, the four of us have been an inspiration and you can be an inspiration to some other person as well. And, the more we keep pushing each other, the more, we'll be able to actually move forward and, change the systems and change the mindsets that are on the ground. Thank you. It's lovely being here.
Thank you, Thank you, Ifra. It was also lovely having you on the panel. Next, we have Karen Wakoli.
Wow, what I would say is, if you can think it, do it, you can achieve it. Like, really, is there anything impossible? No. We can do it. We're doing it. We are the change makers. And I realized that about the inside job, it's about belief. So I would say, believe in whatever you're doing, believe in that social good that you want to see in the world. And even when the road gets tough and things get thick and you fail, pick yourself up and keep going and encourage yourself that, you know what, tomorrow the sun will rise again. But just believe and keep going. Don't give up. Do not retreat. Do not surrender. Success is yours. Thank you.
Much, Karen. So definitely it all starts from shifting mindsets. If you believe you can do it, you definitely can do it. And last but not least, we have Dr. Gladys Kalema. Dr. Gladys, any parting words for our innovators today? I think she may be having trouble with her audio. Other than that, ladies, it was lovely having you today. Thank you so much for accepting to be on our panel today. Such insightful thoughts you've shared as entrepreneurs, as leaders in your own rights. With that, I also want to thank a special shout out to Ashoka Arab World. Thank you so much for organizing for this summit. And I do hope to connect with each one of you even after the summit. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the incredible moderation.
You're welcome, Khalila. All right, thank you everyone.
Bye.
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 Asante.
Bye.